How's it going, everyone? It is Online here, and welcome to a special Death Stranding Spoilercast. Today I'm joined by Badman's Knowledge.
Hi, my name
What's
is
up?
Zach.
Yep. And Positively Negative, also known as Ian.
Greetings, fellow Earthlings.
Links to both their channels, of course, will be in the description, as always. Today we'll be going over everything Death Stranding related, so if you have yet to finish the game, this is your warning now, steer away now. We're going to talk about everything Death Stranding related. Alright, with that being said, I guess we'll just get into it. The game's been out for over a month now, so I guess what I'm wondering is your guys' overall verdict of the game. Just what did you guys think of it? This long 50-hour journey. What did you guys think of it when you pretty much ended the game?
Well,
I
Um,
Zach, you want
guess.
to go first?
Yeah, I'll let any of you guys start.
I guess. Well, my playtime I think was 53 hours, so you were pretty accurate there. Um, I like a lot of things in this game, and the direction that Mr. Kojima was going for, and there's a lot of things I dislike in the game, though. I would say that overall, eh, I kind of like it, but I couldn't recommend it, and I wish it was better. Like I liked that I played it, but I would never ever want to play it a second time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I guess, Ian, do you want to add to that? And then I'll just close.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the odd one out here and have the very, very opposite end opinion. I absolutely fucking love this game. If I had to give it like one statement as an opinion of what I thought, I would say all of the likes that I have to give would go to this game.
All
I'm
those Death
already on
Stranding
my
likes.
I'm already on my second playthrough. I have actually two separate save files. The first one I finished again at 53 hours. That must be like a kind of a standard finishing point, I guess. Second one, I'm just now at the part where you have to go and to the isolation ward,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get to that later, of course. But yeah, basic first level thoughts. I adore the hell out of this game. There are some things I don't like. There are some things I wish were better, but that doesn't taint my opinion of it at all.
Alright, so I'm probably gonna try to not go on a rant because I have a tendency to do that. So to sum up my experience at Death Stranding, I'd probably say I'm more leaning towards Zach's kind of stance for it. So I really enjoyed the game. I really wanted to see it through. I've really been interested in this game for years, and I wanted to see how the story would all come together. And as we got the gameplay kind of out there, I kind of figured what this game was going to be about. And I'm completely fine with all the traversal and everything like that. And I ended up liking how that kind of worked out in the end. I do think the game was quite repetitive to get to that point of the end. I mean, I know it's expected to be like that, considering what he's going for in terms of all these deliveries and stuff. But in terms of my overall enjoyment with everything with the story, the characters, when I saw it all through till the end, I felt satisfied with the story in a way, but at the same time, I just kind of felt like it was very repetitive to get to that point, and ultimately, I don't think the game is the best game that came out this year, if that makes any sense. So while I did completely enjoy the game, and I don't think it's, as bad as a lot of people like to put it online, I definitely think that this game does have some issues I want to talk about. But that being said, I did really enjoy my time with the game, so I don't want to make it seem like it's a negative. I do think I'm somewhere kind of conflicted in a way where that, I kind of am frustrated that the game wasn't in a lot of ways what I wanted it to be years ago. But at the same time, I respect it for what it is, and I do like the beauty of it being very weird and very interesting, and focusing fully on the fact that you're managing cargo on your back, which we haven't really seen that in a game before until now. So yeah, I guess with that being said, we'll go into more specific topics. I guess we'll just start with the beginning of the game. The game, very much like any Kojima game that I've heard of, very cutscene based, at least, in terms of the first few hours of Death Stranding in particular, setting up this world. We saw, at least for the first few chapters, yeah, a lot of cutscenes. The game, I want to say before the progression aspects hit in, chapter 2 is very different than any other chapters of the game. What did you guys think about the first opening hours when you're first playing the game? Starting off with chapter 2 in terms of the very, east coast of the United States and everything like that. Anything in particular that you guys remember from your first beginning hours of the game?
So the thing that I just want to say before I go on a larger tangent here, and I'm gonna let Zach go after I say this. I was not expecting the game to start the way it did. I was expecting it to
Same.
start with the with the scene of Cliff running through the hallway in like the futuristic facility that we saw in the launch trailer. That's what I thought was going to start. But when we saw the whole scene with Sam on the bike and the deer and the birds and the timefall storm, and then everything that I can't talk today happens after that, I was just kind of like, okay, that works. Not what I thought, but yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I will say that I didn't expect it to like kind of start as slow as it did. I did it was kind of shocked that it took a while for Matt's character to really get into play. I think it's like maybe like the 15-20 hour mark that you finally see him for the first time, like in chapter 3, at the end of chapter 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So actually maybe like in my 20s
30 hours
actually.
For me.
Yeah, 30 I imagine for you because you finished
it slower towards the start, and then I played it faster later on because honestly I was getting kind of bored.
Yeah, I believe it was like in the middle of my 20s, probably early 20s, I don't want to get past chapter 3 in particular. But yeah, just talking about the way the game started out, it was very different than I expected. That being said, it has like a very... If you're either watching a lot of cutscenes or you're very much playing the game for like a long period of time, like this game will feel like an open world kind of, Ubisoft traditional kind of way. Like I'm using that loosely here. Obviously, it's not as, copied and pasted as like a lot of open worlds today. But yeah, there's like very much a lot of cutscenes in the beginning of the game, and then there's a lot of cutscenes at the end of the game, and a lot of it in between is just, full on you playing as Sam going across America. So I was very surprised by how much like at the beginning of chapter 2 or 3 it kind of just cuts you off and you're just playing the game for how long you're going to be playing and how long it takes. I do like that a lot of people have a lot of various playtimes. But yeah, in terms of the world building and everything, it did kind of give me a lot of questions in the beginning that it took a while to get answered. The things like the Doom effect that we found out that, Fragile and Sam were both Dooms. I still kind of wish they kind of talked about that a bit more in terms of the Doom nature. Did we ever really get a clear kind of definition? We know that it's related to your birthday, but did they ever really hit on the fact like why certain people are born got the Doom effect depending on, I'm guessing it means like zodiac sign or whatever?
No one really dived into what exactly Doom's was. I think Doom's is one of the things in the game that's interpretive. It's not one of the hard answered facts about the game's lore. It's something that is more or less left open to your own interpretation as a player. And I would much rather have small features like that left up to interpretation than just leaving a story thread or 2 or 10 up to interpretation, because that would just be far more worse for everybody's sanity.
Yeah, super interesting because like Sam's Doom obviously is that he can sense BTs. Fragile is that she has the teleportation, I believe, right? And yeah, I think Higgs did Higgs also have a Doom as well, or was that ever tested on?
Higgs. So I guess the way that they handled the different abilities with Dooms was determined by how long you had Dooms and what level you had it. There's a point where Fragile references in the beginning that Sam is level 2 and that Higgs, she mentions this later on, that Higgs is level 7. So that gives kind of a basis for how the abilities vary.
I had forgotten about that. But yeah, I don't fully understand that aspect of the story. And one thing that I actually don't like about most of the story is I feel like there was a lot of explaining what was going on. There was too much exposition. I can't talk today either, Ian. For my taste, I think it would have been more interesting if they left more mystery, but not too much.
That's funny because like people always act like Death Stranding is like this big mystery, but I felt like kind of like the same thing you did. The game almost kind of treats you like a baby at a lot of times. Like you'll get a certain reveal in a cutscene and you'll be like, oh, that's very clever, and then it'll immediately get ruined by the next kind of point where like some guy will get up here on like your holo map pretty much explaining everything that just happened in that cutscene. Like, oh, maybe BB is the related to like Cliff, and it's kind of like no shit. Yeah. Like you kind of get that,
Yeah, and it bothers me because it was to the point of where, like, in the Cliff parts, you understand that he's the father of the baby, or so you think, and the game doesn't have to tell you that again and again after that. Like you get that just by seeing it,
Yeah, exactly. Kind of just treated you like a baby in a way. I don't want to stay on the beginning parts of the game for too long because a lot of the more interesting stuff I do want to talk about for however long we record this for is in the later half of the game. I do want to talk about the gameplay. A lot of people talk about how it feels very clunky to play. It's not fun to play. That was like a big thing thrown around during the review period, at least. Did you guys have fun in playing this game? Like, what did you have from this game? I know I wouldn't necessarily say fun for me. I'd say more satisfying, because I do really like the animations and like the sense of progression in terms of climbing a mountain, scaling it, using your creativity with the tools you have. You know, connecting online, that's another big thing I want to talk about. So, like, during your guys' time playing, I guess you can include the BT encounters and the overall combat as well. But yeah, just everything, traversal, combat, what'd you guys think of the game?
So I'm gonna go ahead and take this one because I have a lot that I want to kind of say here. Not to run over anybody else, but I would say this opinion is probably shared by a few people. When I started the game, I was like, oh boy, yes, we're finally here. I can go out and see what the world has to offer. Probably about 2/4, halfway through the game, same difference. I was bored. I wasn't bored to the point where I wanted to quit, but I was bored like, this is tedious. This is annoying. I have fell off a cliff and damaged my cargo multiple times. Like, I was just very annoyed, but not to the point where I wanted to quit. It was when I got close to the end, and then even after the end, you know, going through all of the what I call the aftermath of the story, that I actually started to have fun. Because when you start to unlock more tools and you get more abilities and you start to figure out how to carry more cargo and how to carry it more efficiently, and you start getting familiar with the world design and the tools you can use and interacting with other players' tools, once you start figuring things out and you get a beat on it, then you can have fun. And the fun in it for me is learning how to screw with the game and do what the game doesn't want you to do. That's when I had the most fun with it.
Like climbing a mountain that's like almost vertical.
Yeah. Yeah, so during my time with the game, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I do it's like the climbing anchors, like, it's a little thing, but I love how you can literally place them anywhere. Like, you literally have so much kind of options to dispose of about like what you want to do with the tools that you have on you. I like that a lot. Yeah, traversing I thought was pretty fun. I like the idea of holding down L2 and R2 for like different straps of your backpack and the whole balance kind of game, especially in the beginning when you don't have any exosuits and you're just solely relying on Sam. Like the first mission that ever kind of introduced that concept was like the one where you had to burn
his mom.
I forget her name. Yeah, his mom, pretty much, the president. Yeah, Reggie. Or is it Reggie or Regina? Something like that? Yeah.
Bridget.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's a bridge pun.
Bridge pun, yeah.
There's
like
there's
a lot of puns in this game, I was gonna say.
Kojima loves his puns.
And his
slightly foreshadowing. I was just like any other Cliff.
Yeah. But I enjoyed playing through it quite a bit. I will say I didn't really like any of the game's human conflict, BT conflict, anything where I had to use any weapons in the game.
Really? Why is that?
I will say. Okay, I'll let you say it first, Brand.
Yeah, everything with the fact that you're managing cargo with combat doesn't work well, in my opinion. Just everything in terms of like throwing nades, shooting stuff. It doesn't feel right when you're supposed to be carrying cargo. And like it got really, like, I wouldn't say frustrating, but just not fun to play at all. Like, I dread whenever a BT encounter would come up. Like the first time you'd ever see like the pointy thing come up, you're like, oh shit, this is the stuff from the trailer. You gotta avoid these things. It's really cool. Pretty much like a few encounters into them, you just start like dreading it, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to get caught by these things because it's gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna have to run out of these gooey circles and get them to go away or something like that. It's just like either that or you're gonna have to fight it, which, let's be real, like, fighting these things are a pain in the ass.
Something that I really didn't like with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
There you go. Totally take it.
But something that I really didn't like with that was the BT and encounters throughout the game, like when you're doing these stealth to try to avoid them. During those sections, like throughout the game, they don't change at all. It's the exact same thing. Like, I would have really liked it if there was some sort of variety or different types of BTs that try to find you during that section. Because there's different looking BT bosses, but all of the ones that, you know, search for you are pretty much all the same. Some of them are different colors. I never even found out what that did. Because I hardly ever got caught by them. because
Yeah, same.
I don't think the game's very difficult.
What if I told you it was chiral crystals, Zach?
Well, I did notice that when I would kill them or free them, because they give you likes when you cut their umbilical cord. I did notice that the different color ones did give you more crystals, but I didn't know if there was anything more to it.
That's
Well,
as far as I'm aware,
wondering
that's
as
the
well.
main purpose of them.
And it's pretty much just
Overall-
different drops.
Overall, I can say that I fucking hated the combat in this game.
Yep.
Wow.
I didn't like a single bit of it. The only part that I kind of liked was the BT stealth, but that got old very quickly. All of the combat to me was very poorly designed. It was like they designed it good enough to be the point to where it was in the game, but they didn't they didn't refine any of it. It was sort of like I was playing a pre-alpha version of the combat. That's what it felt like to me.
That's a good way to put it. Like, just especially since the BTs are pretty much in the same spaces at the same time. Like, you know what to expect whenever you're going through an area that you've already been through and, like, what areas you want to avoid. It kind of lost that kind of sense. Yeah, it kind of lost that sense of I can get captured at any moment. Yeah, because pretty much you knew when you could sprint and where you had to stop sprinting pretty much, like, halfway through the game. Yeah, as Zach said, like when you got the ability to cut off the umbilical cord, I love that, but I loved it for the wrong reasons. I loved it because it made me encountering BTs less of an issue, and it's just like it's sad that I don't want to encounter these things and I just want to spam square. And it made them really easy, almost kind of like the human well, I wouldn't say the human conflict's easy. I mean, anything in this game is generally easy. You don't really die in this game, let's be real. But yeah, it just kind of made it a lot made it so you could avoid it, which is not a good kind of solution in my opinion. So yeah, it was ultimately like the low point of Death Stranding for me in terms of the human conflict and the BT encounters. I did like some of the game's later bosses. I felt like they were pretty well designed.
I didn't.
Higgs in particular. You didn't like Higgs?
Higgs was hated every single boss in the game. It was the worst parts of the game for me.
I really want to talk
liked
about
Higgs.
this now.
I liked Higgs, but I didn't like it out of gameplay. I liked it out of just... I don't know. It was very simple, but it was also very... I like how... I love the 1v1 kind of sense that you got at like the end of Uncharted in that kind of way with Higgs.
I really like how Troy Baker portrayed the character. I really liked his acting in it, but the gameplay itself just irritated me. Honestly, if I could sum up how the combat feels to me in the game, is that it's very easy, and I'm glad that it's as easy as it is, because if it was much harder, it would be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah,
and
I think the only hard part about this game is like sometimes like you just got to be mindful that the rain's gonna destroy your cargo. Like that's about it. Like just the timefall.
Yeah, but even then, like the rain usually
even then you get the respray as well.
Destroys your package, but not what's in the package. So it kind of
exactly, and you can just heal it with the sprays as well.
I honestly never used that the whole time.
As long as you keep your packages from getting all the way down to 0%, or I guess 100% damage, it won't damage the internals of the package.
Yeah. Again, this game not very hard at all.
Man, oh god. Combat wise, you guys have said like what you didn't like and everything very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that definitely understands where you're coming from, especially Zach. I understand it, and I've seen it, and I've experienced it firsthand. But I have the exact opposite opinion. Once again, I loved the combat not because I thought it was well designed. I will say firsthand, coming from the guy who made Metal Gear Solid, the combat is fucking anemic. That's just how it is right off the bat. Coming from him, it feels very, very weak. But knowing that the combat is not the main point of the game helped me understand why it wasn't designed overly detailed.
I get
that doesn't need to be a focus. It could still be enjoyable even if you're not focusing on it though.
Yeah, and my issue with it, Ian, is that combat isn't the focus of the game, yet towards the end there's so much combat, and I think this game didn't even need combat in it at all.
It could literally just be a delivery sim without the BTs, and you'd be in the husk, and you'd probably be fine.
Just add more gameplay features to the deliveries and traversal, and it would be fine.
I think part of the reason and I'm not trying to like make excuses or defend the choices that were made here, but this is just how I've interpreted it over my playtime. I think the reason that the combat is frustrating is because you are quite literally just a blue collar worker. You're just a guy. You're not Solid Snake. You're not a super warrior. You're not a soldier. You're just a random ass dude who sucks at moving when he has a lot of weight on his back. And it's that frustration that you experience when you get into combat with a bunch of shit on your back is the exact same thing you would feel in real life if you're walking around and you encounter a hazard with a bunch of cargo on your back. So
See,
I know that it's frustrating, and I know that a lot of people have issues with it and they're annoyed with how, I guess, unintuitive the combat is. But from my perspective, I just kind of deal with it by saying that's intentional, even though I know that it is very frustrating, and I'm not going to tell anybody they're wrong for feeling that way.
Yeah, I knew this was gonna. I've seen this debate going around like about how like it's supposed to be like you're not like some superhero, which I totally agree and I totally see how that's part of it. But I just feel like this game's combat, like just in terms of its bells and whistles, and in terms of like how it's supposed to be kind of portrayed, especially kind of like near the end in terms of like the chapter where it was like every single BT boss in hell thrown at you. Okay, it seems like at once almost.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't understand like what, like if they wanted to focus on the game on combat for so much in terms of like the game's pivotal moments, like fighting against Higgs and stuff. I don't understand why they didn't really, I don't know, put much more into it. Like I feel like it could have showed that struggle of you not being skilled at all and just being like, as you said, just a worker, a porter, not someone that's like Nathan Drake by any means at all. Just I didn't enjoy playing it, and I feel like that's not a good enough kind of like reason to be why the combat is the way it is. Like, I feel like you could have definitely made it a lot more enjoyable of experience for the user in terms of just playing through it. But at the same time, show those kind of struggles that you don't have the possibilities that, you know, a lot of games make it out to be, like you're some legend or something, which I do agree. I do like how Death Stranding is very much like at any day, anyone could be this person that starts to change. I mean, hell, that's what the game pretty much is backing on, the fact that everyone comes together and does this.
Right.
But yeah, just like, I do want to focus a bit more on the BTs. I feel like the BTs in particular are very much just simply throw nades and just shoot them.
Right.
Those don't have anything to them really much at all, in my opinion.
In that regard, the BTs were built up in the trailers, and when the game came out and I had my first couple encounters with them, I'd say after probably the third or fourth time sneaking through BT territory, I was not scared. Because by that point in the game, I realized how to manipulate them to my advantage, and I knew what they were used for. So there were points in the game where I was walking outside with no cargo just to get myself captured and defeat the boss, because I knew there was gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, like the crystals?
The crystals, yep. And
Crystals
that's
at the end of the rainbow.
I like how the symbolism of the rainbow represents that there's BTs, and that's what you get for defeating them. It's kind of like a nice little nod.
Yeah, it is kind of
The upside down rainbow is a nice touch.
Yeah.
I will say, like, yeah, I mean, I just found crystals around the world, so I didn't really ever need to feel like that's one thing as well. Like the resources in this game, like I wasn't playing on hard like Zach was. I don't know if you noticed if the resources were like any more limiting, but
just,
they, like the resources are very.
Just to comment on that, I played half of the game on hard, and then I switched it to medium once there were the terrorist enemies, and they can just shoot you and kill you.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I found it very difficult to take cover whatsoever, and I got irritated about that. So I
my
switched it to
God.
medium then. But up until then, I was playing on hard.
Are you talking about like the terrorists in terms of like the chapters where you see Higgs or I mean Cliff?
No, just in the
Just in the
open
world in general? Gotcha.
Yeah, the ones that are like the mules, except they try to kill you.
Yeah, except they have
Yes.
guns. Yeah, exactly.
Zach, I want to interject for a second there. What you said about cover is absolutely right, and I am disappointed that once again, Metal Gear's creator didn't feature a press X to take cover button. Like, are you serious?
like,
of all things you could forget.
If you're going to make a game where you play as a character who's weak, you know, he's not a superhero, then at least give options to avoid enemies better. One other thing that I didn't like is I felt like the dodging system in the game was very weak, and it was
Hell
difficult to pull off, and it just felt incredibly clunky.
the dodge was difficult to pull. I actually found myself using the bash where you push square instead of X. I found that one much more effective for dodging than the actual dodge mechanic.
I don't think I ever even figured out that was in the game.
Yeah,
I do
it's
want to
just,
talk about
Go ahead.
You go. You can finish the thought.
I was just saying it's R2 and L2 and then you press square instead of X.
Yeah.
That's it.
I do want to talk about the cover. I kind of didn't mind the lack of cover because I felt like in Death Stranding a lot, it's either flight or fight pretty much. Like either you're going to fight them or you're going to run. I did like, I mean, a lot of the, let's be real, like a lot of the games, you know, parts of the game where you're going to be fighting enemies, a lot of them are in like big open plains where there'll be like pretty much these sections where you have to cross these big open plains and like you're gonna get caught no matter what pretty much, and it kind of forces you to just kind of like try to outrun them. I kind of like that idea. I mean, we've seen that a lot in the trailers of like outrunning and shit, and just I kind of like the idea that you're either gonna fight or run. In terms of cover, that's the thing, like the fact that it's like a big open world, like it would have been kind of hard to do that in a way. And then you get bigger issues like how are you gonna drive vehicles when there's like a bunch of cover in like every single place.
Yeah, like it wouldn't make sense if there were just a bunch of chest high walls everywhere.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it is just out in nature, you know, pretty much all of the game. But I do think the combat could have been designed to make it more interactive and fun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
I think
think
it's just
they
the
needed
game's
to
core
make
combat.
Sam an all-powerful like killing machine. Which one thing that I really love about this game is that I've never played anything like it, and I like that there isn't a focus on killing.
Me too.
Like I
But
like how half the
it could have been
encounters you
designed
can
better.
pretty much just run away from them, like in general.
Well, I mean, like what we're talking about as far as cover goes. Yeah, Sam's not a superhero. Yeah, you are out in the open world where there's not going to be random chest high walls everywhere. But at that rate, why can't we build cover? We can build bridges and generators and all this other. Why can't we build cover? You know,
That was
a good
something I
idea.
noticed. That was actually something I noticed a lot. Like in terms of, I expected it to come. Once I saw zip lines, I'm like, okay, surely there's gonna be one for cover later on, like near the end when you get a lot of higher end enemies. It just never came.
All right,
Like everything's all pretty much everything you build in this game is all about, you know, traversal, but there's nothing in terms of combat that you could build really in terms of like with the community. Which I thought
Ian,
was interesting.
I think since you're the one who's playing the game still, you should test if you can like build a post box and just to use it as cover or something. Like it probably takes too long to build for that to work, but
Well, you need a lot of them because those things are skinny as hell.
That's a good idea, though. I'll have to try that. That's a pretty good idea. I did want to talk about Higgs boss fight before we move on from combat, though.
Go ahead.
That moment for me, it took me a little bit for it to finally click in my head. But you guys were talking earlier about how you generally didn't like the boss fight gameplay wise. You liked it story wise and you liked the characters and the acting, but gameplay wise you weren't very pleased with it.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah.
Yeah, was it because you felt it wasn't challenging enough, or because you just felt like you were doing the same thing over and over again?
I just felt like I was fighting the game more than I was, you know, having pretty much any enjoyment with it at all. Like, it felt very awkward to play in terms of the cargo management and everything. That's why I really liked Higgs boss fight, is because I didn't have, like, 10 feet of fucking loot on my back, having to micromanage that and slipping around while I'm fighting these things and trying to chuck nades. It was just simple me and Higgs, and what wasn't very hard at all, it was very kind of, it had like a defined purpose. It knew what you had on you at the same time, but at the same time, like, it was, yeah, it was just felt more, it felt like Kojima knew what he wanted to give the player in a way, in the sense that it wasn't like a complete kind of mess. That was actually one of my highlights of the game, was the Higgs boss fight, but it was more for story reasons than for gameplay. The gameplay was still very basic, but I would say it's also probably still the best fight in the game.
That was one of my highlights too, and about halfway through the fight, I realized something. It starts out with, Higgs, and he has a gun, and you have to throw the cargo to stun him and go over and beat his ass. And then when he drops the gun, he gives you a small monologue, and then ever since he drops the gun, he does this thing where he teleports around and he'll throw grenades at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the dialogue that he speaks when he drops the gun is like, I don't need the gun, I can beat you. And then every time he throws a grenade, he's like, eat this, fuck you. He's yelling at Sam. And here I am just walking, literally, not even running, not trying to duck for cover, just intimidatingly walking towards Higgs. And I'm sitting there playing the game like, this isn't hard. I'm just walking at him. Why is this not difficult? And then it clicked. You're the boss. Not him. You are. That's why Higgs sounds like a player who's trying to fight the same Dark Souls boss he's lost to 100 times. I can beat you, eat shit, fuck you, because you're the boss in that fight.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to go for that, though.
An interesting interpretation.
I mean, you could say that about like a lot of bosses then. I mean, where you're like kicking its ass, I guess. But
Just kind of think about it with that interpretation in mind. And
at the end of the fight, you do both have the big health bars on screen.
That was very cool. I did like that. It kind of reminded me of A Way Out. You know, have you guys played A Way Out?
No.
Yeah.
I know Zach has. Zach, you know that I won't spoil it, but you know what they were trying to go for, right?
Oh yeah, the ending of that game is the
inspired.
best part of it.
It felt very that boss felt like very inspired near the end of A Way Out.
By the way,
which I
Ian,
immediately picked up on.
I'm going to post a link here in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe Online can edit this into his video. This was a tweet that he made, sharing a moment from the game that I'm sure must have been very frustrating, and
I'll check this
makes
out.
me think of why I don't like the combat. And if I was in this situation, I would be pissed.
I found that more funny than frustrating. I'm not gonna lie. I'll play right now for everyone watching.
One more thing I wanted to say about Higgs boss fight before we move on is the whole health bar thing. Did you guys notice what happens if you eat a crypto bite as opposed to when Higgs eats a crypto bite in that fight? The final fist fight.
Oh,
during the final fist fight.
Yeah, I didn't realize either of us could heal in that.
Really? Yeah, there's moments where like there'll be a short cinematic when someone gets hit, and then the crypto bites will kind of float up into the sky. You can pick them up and eat them to regain health. Do you want me to tell you what happens?
I think I remember picking up one of those actually and eating one of them.
So when and this is just kind of, I'm saying this to further my point about you being the boss in that fight. If you miss that opportunity and Higgs eats the crypto bite, he'll gain a little bit of health back. He'll gain like a fourth of his health back or whatever. If you eat a crypto bite, just one, your entire health bar fills back up.
That's funny.
The entire health bar. And it's like yeah, that does seem like the game is being way too easy on you, because if you get to half health with him and then you eat a crypto bite, there's no way you're going to lose. But that just kind of reminded me of other bosses in video games where you can't regen all your health and they just do one little simple move and they're back to full again.
But that's what I'm wondering. Like, you say, like, you're supposed to be, like, an everyday kind of guy throughout most of the game. But why would the game all of a sudden want you to be a boss fight?
See, that's weird. I don't know.
Just think I need to rewatch that or replay it and try to look for that, but that's interesting.
Also, I saw that video that you sent me. That same thing happened to me. Not at the same moment in the game, but that same thing did happen to me before.
I saw someone else reply. I think Josh Anderson, a good friend of mine, also said that happened to him on his first BT encounter or something, which is pretty funny.
I was really annoyed by that because one of the things that Kojima said before the game came, like years before the game came out, is that there's no game over screen. If you die, then you go to the seam and there's a crater that's left in the world and you can see your devastating actions of failure. And then when that happened to me, I was like, oh, so what happened to no game over screen?
Yeah.
You know?
There should have been some sort of consequence for damaging the package rather than just having to replay that portion of the game, I think.
Yeah, when I died there, I literally just spawned back at that same spot with me on my knees resting again.
Oh, was the boss dead?
Yeah, because I killed the boss.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. I thought you would have to fight the boss again. That's why
it just gave me a very generous like checkpoint there.
Oh, okay.
Which I didn't know when I created that clip, so I came back and I'm like, all right, time to fight this boss again. And I'm like, oh, I actually don't have to. Yeah, it is very, like, it's supposed to be like, oh, there's supposed to be consequences, but it's still a game at the end of the day. Like, people act like, I mean, it is a work of art in some ways. I can see what people mean, but yeah, I mean, it's still a game at the end of the day. It's still going to have its checkpoints. It's still going to have its traditional bells and whistles.
So should we talk about the deliveries and traversal some more? Because we've mostly touched on combat with the gameplay.
Yeah,
so
we kind of
far.
talked about the control and then went over to combat. So
Yes.
yeah, let's talk about traversal in general. What'd you guys think of? I don't know, just take away with traversal, like everything in terms of the tools, everything in terms of controlling Sam. What'd you guys think of the early chapters compared to later chapters as you got like, new abilities? Like for me, a big one was the exosuit. Like it immediately made the game like 2 times easier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I would say that traversal is my favorite part of the game, other than some of the cutscenes that are really great. Most people who dislike this game don't like the traversal because they say, "Oh, it's a walking simulator. It's boring just to go from one place to some other place." But although I do think it got more boring as the game went on, just because the game is so incredibly long. I really liked it, and I think it's a good gameplay loop to figure out how to get from point A to point B. When there's some sort of obstacle in the way, and you have to figure out how to get around it. And there's different ways to solve the issue, and it's very satisfying when you figure it out. So for me, that's what I liked the most about the gameplay.
Yeah, I love the beginning of the game the most in terms of traversal because you're learning how this world works. You're struggling against it, especially like chapter 2, before you have anything, before you can even have like little droids that can help you with some of your load, which makes the game a lot easier towards the end. I mean, to give the game, credit, it does, spike in difficulty in terms of adding more weight to coincide with that. But yeah, for me, a lot of the game kind of like, in a way, a lot of people like the idea that, oh, you gotta all connect together and like build these roads. But like literally like in near the end of chapter 3, I already had like a highway going between like half of the game's world where I just drive down at full speed going on my truck. I don't know if it's just because of the certain server I had, apparently already had a highway built pretty much connecting like half the game's map, but it made it very easy when I wanted to go from like point A to point B. A lot of times I just literally drive down the highway, and then there'd be like certain parts where you gotta go on foot. But yeah, I did like the fact that like this community could all come together and build roads, but at the same time, like finding that like halfway through the game was like, okay, well, I guess this game is just gonna be holding down R2 for like a lot of it.
Yeah, and while we're on that topic, we'll let Ian, say what he has to say about this. Which is while we're on that topic, I originally focused on really trying to build those roads, and I built like a good portion of it, and I got so many likes for doing it. It leveled me up like crazy. I think it leveled up that specific stat like 20 levels the first time that I got a bunch of likes on it. But then I realized like it just takes a long time to build the roads because of how many materials it needs, and it just didn't seem worth it in the end, so I kind of gave up on it.
I mean, it's meant for it to be kind of like a thing where a village comes together and kind of does it all as a community and more than just like one person, I guess, to add. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I never really bothered with the roads because I just wanted to go on foot no matter what. I like the idea of a road existing, so to make it easier, I mean, that the whole reason I like this game is the fact that like a lot of it, it's just you, the baby in the pod, and the cargo on your back, and it's just like you listening to your thoughts whenever you're going on these deliveries. A lot of times it says you, like the real player in your real world, like day with like issues and stuff, and you're thinking about it as you're just traversing through. And like whenever I wanted to make some coffee while playing the game, I'd literally go to sleep with me and BB and literally just come back, and it felt very connected in that way, in a way where a lot of people, like, when they're driving to work, they listen to podcasts. In a way, it's kind of like that, where it's just you and your thoughts as you're traversing through the game. That was my favorite kind of part of this game, was literally just being there, being present while traversing and using your mind actively to figure out these problems, like you're really scaling these mountains, and just kind of just being there and taking it all in was my kind of favorite part of this game.
Yeah.
So just the idea of the roads kind of wasn't something I really participated in. I mean, as it is, the freeway was already kind of there by the time it was like chapter 3, at the end of chapter 3. So yeah. Ian, do you want to add to that? What did you think of the whole community system of coming together?
So as far as traversal goes, my opinion changed over the time I played the game. When I started the game, very first delivery, very first moment that you have free roam, I was interested to see what the world had to offer, but I was more motivated by the next cutscene. That was my big driving factor, was the next cutscene, the next story beat, the next reveal, the next character. I did not really care for traversing from point A to point B. As the game progressed for me, I began to realize that the point of the game is traversal. The point of the game is the journey, not the destination. And I find it really interesting that Kojima was able to take something that most players do in every open world game, that most players are bored with at some point or another, and turn it into the main mechanic. You know, think about any other game that you've played, Horizon Zero Dawn. Spider-Man's not a very good example because traversal's actually fun in there. But take Infamous, take, any game that is large in scale and you have to make a lot of distance to go from one place to another. In those games, the traversal serves no purpose other than I'm here, I need to get there. And in Death Stranding, it's like the traversal is the main point. And it took me a while to finally realize that. And once I did, I enjoyed it a lot more. I enjoyed finding ways to get places most efficiently. I enjoyed mapping out my journey to take deliveries to multiple locations and how I could get to them using the easiest route with the least amount of rough terrain. Once I figured it out, that was the point where I was like, okay, it's actually fun to travel in the world, not just to get where I'm going.
Yeah, and it's also like kind of the payoff when you actually do reach the destination, like everything you've kind of overcome. And just, I mean, the game does really have some cool moments where Low Roar will play when you're going to another destination.
Yes.
Yeah, those are my
I do
favorite
find
moments.
it funny how Kojima literally just slaps in a song like everywhere in the game. Like, it was really cool the first few times, and then like, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was definitely well placed in certain areas, but it's kind of funny how he took that and kind of slapped it around.
Yeah. I like it, and maybe I'm biased because I'm actually a big fan of Low Roar. I found them because of the first trailer for the game had their or his music in it. I technically don't know if it's a band.
I think
But yeah,
it is.
it was great, I think.
Mm-hmm. And when it's going in terms of that discussion for like best score music, I'm really hesitant about it because it is kind of just using Low Roar's kind of music in the game, but
Yeah, but
at the same time, it's also still so good.
I think that Low Roar's music fits because it's very slow and meditative. And it fits with you just hiking around in nature and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I would say that Death Stranding has one of the best scores is because it's the only game I know of that features, and this is going to sound kind of weird when I say it, but just try to follow me. It features real music that was designed for the game that can be listened to outside of the game and not be called a game soundtrack, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you're not listening to the game's OST when you're listening to Low Roar.
Yeah, it's like legitimate, just everyday music that was designed specifically for the game. I think that's really cool.
Well,
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, and just to clarify on that, some of the songs in the game were written for the game, but none of the songs by Low Roar were written for the game. They all already exist.
Well,
by Kojima.
Most of them. Some of which, I mean, I'm sure the later songs that were written after Kojima approached them might have had some kind of influence.
The Low Roar songs in general, though, weren't they already released before pretty much?
Yeah,
though?
pretty much.
He just liked the music.
From the album Zero, yes, those were released before.
Yeah. And his most recent album came out the same day as the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see a connection between his songs and the content of the game. I think that Kojima just liked the songs and thought that they fit with the game, so he put them in. Maybe there was a bit of collaboration. I know there's a music video for one of the songs that has a very Death Stranding vibe to it that Ian actually made a video about. But yeah, I would say I don't think any of the Low Roar songs were made for the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it very, as I said, it felt like Kojima just really personally liked it and slapped it in a way. No, I say slapped it in.
I mean, I think it fits.
Yeah.
I think he used them really well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. In terms of the game's cast, I did want to touch one point. Did them being celebrities affect the game at all in terms of its immersion for you?
No,
Immersion, no.
Yeah,
I've seen some people bring that up. For me, I kind of got that with not Die Hardman, Dead Man a bit, and also, well, Norman Reedus is different because I do watch The Walking Dead, so I do.
you're
see
the
you as
only
Daryl.
person on the planet who still watches that show.
It's still the #1 show on cable, so
Oh,
not
sure.
really. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still see him as
cable
Daryl, but that's
anymore.
pretty much, that's not the game's issue. That's just personally, I guess. I mean, Norman Reedus is a popular actor, so. Yeah, I did think that the acting was pretty good. I would say the one weakest link for me was Hartman, because it had, like, a lot of big focus on him during, like, those cutscenes he did have with him. But I felt like the payoff for him, or, I mean, just felt like they kind of forgot about him near the end.
Yeah,
And nothing really happened
really
with this
liked-
whole arc with his family.
yeah, I really liked his character. He was very interesting. I don't think that he fits into the overall story all that well.
Mhm.
Like, I think they could have cut that out and not lost all that much.
You could have cut Hartman out and you'd be completely fine with Death Stranding as it was. It was an interesting idea of like someone that did have like a heart issue, what would happen to him when he technically does die and come back to life with people that have that kind of issue.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool, interesting thing to talk about. But besides that, like what Zach said, like in terms of the story, like we never really got closure with it. It didn't really feel like it was part of the overall theme. Yeah, he was like the one that kind of was interesting. I do want to talk about, like, while we're talking about the characters, Cliff was an interesting character to me that kind of died off near the end. Like,
Really?
I do, okay, so this is going to be a big discussion that we're probably all going to have really conflicting parts. I kind of don't like how they made Cliff just, like, everything about his character I absolutely loved, and then it felt like just near the end, he was like, it died off with me in terms of, like, his reveal. Like, it kind of felt a little weak, like, the final boss against, well, the clip bosses were really dumb, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
3
like
times.
the final one is like you both like hug each other, and it's like out of the blue, out of nowhere, and all of a sudden this guy that's supposed to be like really creepy and mysterious, it's like kind of felt like a weird moment to have that kind of reveal. I feel like that reveal should have been, I don't know, better suited. We finally get the cutscene like later on where you're fully playing as the full like kind of introduction of what happened with the event, why Sam and him are connected, why he's coming after him. I do want to say like he was going after the baby in like a lot of so this is gonna be an interesting part because
Indeed,
a lot of this is like very mindfuckery considering it's like a life circle in a way, considering Sam technically is the baby, and a lot of people could say that. Well, but it did feel kind of weird that he was coming. Yeah, he's coming after you essentially.
Yeah.
But I swear there was that one cutscene where he comes in and he's like literally looking for BB and Deadman has him. So I'm wondering how they kind of explain that. I mean, technically he doesn't find them.
Cliff thought that the BB that Sam had was his baby, and he didn't realize that Sam was his son. Otherwise, he wouldn't be shooting at him and trying to...
Okay, so you're saying that when he saw Lou, he thought that... when he saw Lou...
He thought that
he thought that was Sam, considering that's what Sam looked like when he lost him, was in that pod.
Yeah,
possibly,
and
yes.
He never knew Sam because he died and was resurrected.
I know that's why he's clinging on, and that's why he has like the whole beach with his war.
I think the one piece of evidence that confirms that theory is, and since we're doing spoilers, we're going all the way in here.
Yeah,
is the scene where you get to Bridget's beach and you see her and Die Hardman, and Cliff comes out of the water, and Cliff says, "I want my BB back," and Bridget says, "You're looking in the wrong place." When she points at Sam, she's not telling Cliff, "Hey, BB's with Sam, not me." No, she's literally saying Sam is the BB. Sam is who you're looking for.
That's interesting. That explains a lot now.
Yeah. Also, I really did like that plot twist. It didn't feel like a plot twist for the sake of having one. It felt like it was built up in the game. I never even thought that was going to be what happened, yet there's so many things in the game that just make sense. Like when Deadman has to take the BB and reset its memories, you still get the memories, and you're like, what? That doesn't make sense. It's a plot hole, but it's actually not because it's Sam's memories. And also, Sam knows the tune that that Cliff sings to the BB. I'm like, how would he know that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And when he hooks up, he's thinking he's connecting to the pod's kind of memories, but really it's his.
Yeah. I think that
I do wish they kind of talked about the whole process of these babies a little bit more, because it's kind of not confusing in a way, but like the idea of how Sam, I don't know, like the whole idea of this whole pod system of these pods trying to recreate the womb and how where they come from. Like we kind of just get thrown the idea that Lou just came out of nowhere, like it's just a defect one that's just handed to him. Like it just kind of felt very forced to kind of accept that idea without seeing like other babies as well. And like how he happened to get handed Lou, and like I don't know, it's interesting.
Well, like I said,
because it's supposed to be like isn't it? Because Sam lost a child,
yeah,
and I've seen people say that that's supposed to be his child, which I didn't pick up on that. I just picked it up as Lou becoming one of his own, like him accepting that this baby's now his.
That's what I thought, unless I read that
I've
wrong.
seen other people online say the opposite, but they never really kind of alluded to that. If they did, we're trying to go for that.
From what I understand, and before I say this, have you guys been reading any of the interviews that you unlock in the game?
No.
I read most of them, but towards the end I got bored and I stopped.
So
there's so many of them, I didn't bother.
Here's for me one of the game's biggest faults. I think Metal Gear Solid did this system much better. The audio logs in Phantom Pain were easier and more interesting to listen to than reading these fucking interviews. There's a lot of good, really good lore information in the interviews. That's actually where you find out what happened to Hartman. He gets a story conclusion, but it's in an interview. Like, why the fuck are we going to read an interview about a character's conclusion? Why can't we get an audio log? Or like, even if we have to go back in the open world after the story and visit Hartman, can we get a cutscene where he explains it to us? I don't
or get a mission, anything.
Yeah, I don't like having to sit and read the interviews, but they're in the game. That's where a lot of the lore is. So if you are interested, I recommend reading them. I'm going to pull some information out of a few of the interviews here. So these are probably spoilers that you guys might not even know of yet.
I mean, if we're going to just read them from an interview, you telling them isn't going to be any different. Like if we're just going to read it anyway.
So the way I understand it, Sam's wife was named Lucy. And Lucy knew who Bridget was because obviously Bridget was still the president at that time and she would visit Sam. And we know now why she would visit Sam because she was raising him as her own child. And what ended up happening was Lisa was pregnant. Bridget was trying to convince Lucy that she was really important to Sam and that he needed her because Bridget knew what was coming and she knew what her plan was. And, you know, she had to get Sam in the right mindset to want to connect to America instead of having to strong arm him into it. And what ended up happening was Lucy, for one reason or another, it didn't really explain why in the interview, she ended up killing herself when she was pregnant.
I thought she died in an explosion.
I'm willing to bet that
Lucy, hold on, is that Sam's wife?
Lucy is Sam's wife. Yes.
You said Lucy and Lisa.
Lucy is
Lisa.
Yeah, it's sort of confusing.
Lisa's Cliff's wife, yeah. So yeah, Lucy ended up killing herself while she was pregnant. And from what I understand of how the void outs work, there's more interviews that talk about the first void outs. Apparently, BBs come from, and this was explained in the game very clearly, obviously, come from mothers who have died. They're still mothers' babies, right? So in that case, I'm going to go ahead and place my money on the fact that because the baby wasn't removed from Lucy's womb, that is what caused the void out. The live baby inside of the dead mother created a situation where the matter of the child interacted with the antimatter of the BT, which is kind of like the game explains it again, more interview stuff that should have been in the actual game itself. BTs are kind of like a mirror image of us, of humans. They're like
a ghost, essentially.
Yeah, they're basically like a shadow version of ourself. And when the matter of a human comes into contact with the antimatter of BT, that's what causes the void out. So I'm going to just go with the information I know here. The void out that consumed Sam's wife and child was caused by his wife herself.
I thought that all dead bodies go necro, as they say, within 48 hours and cause
That's
a void
what
out.
I thought
even
was
if
the
they're
void
in the
out.
BT.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's possible too. That's entirely possible.
Wouldn't the baby
as well.
die then? If they took it out in time. So you're saying that pretty much Lou is his own child and that they hid it from him.
I don't think so.
So
I don't think so. It's possible, but there's not enough that the game tells us. So I'm going to go ahead and say Lou is not Sam's genetic child. I'll put it that way.
I do want to touch on my overall thoughts on the ending of the game. I think the last hour or two of the game was pretty much the best part of it, but it was
Yes.
also mostly cutscenes. And it made me wish two things. The first one is either that the game would just be a movie, or two, that the main character could have been Cliff, and I think it would have made the story more interesting.
Yeah, but the game wouldn't work as a movie because a lot of the game's aspects and why you appreciate it so much is because of the struggle and the journey, though. In my opinion, I mean, I guess there's kind of two stories. There's kind of two stories to this game. There's the player's kind of journey of like traversing and connecting America, and then there's also the story of finding out what happened to Sam and what he's connected to with Cliff and everything. So I guess I can see what you mean by that aspect being told in the movie.
That's where I think a lot of the conflict comes into place when people play this game, because the story is so amazing and the gameplay by itself is good. But I think the reason a lot of people, including the big reviewers who gave their scores for this game, I think a lot of the conflict they came into with themselves is, does this gameplay belong with this story?
Well, it's essentially like there's two games in one. Like, you really gotta like the idea of traversing. You really gotta like the traversal in order to get through this game, because there's so much of it. You gotta go like the delivery process in order to see the story go. Like, it is pretty much essentially two different games. There's when you get the cutscenes and like the story you're learning, and then there's the whole part in between of getting there with the deliveries and essentially all that stuff. Like, when people talk about Death Stranding, you either get the people that really like it, that talk about like the beautiful natures of it and its story, or you get the people that talk about the little gameplay that you have to go through in order to get to there. So it really does, like, essentially it is pretty much two different games, at least when people talk about them, which I find kind of funny.
It is.
Yeah. And just the whole idea of the fact that, you know, you yourself go through a journey yourself, I guess, playing for the game, and then the whole idea of the literal story that's there with Sam is interesting.
I feel like it's a little bit disconnected in that sense, because the actual story that takes place in the cutscenes of the game really seems like something that would have came out of a Metal Gear game. A lot of it seems like it would have been in that same kind of genre, but the actual gameplay is so different that even though I know it belongs in the same place, and the gameplay helps you advance the story, and the stuff that happens in the gameplay has a place in the story, it just feels disconnected. Different from Horizon, and I'm not going to spoil Horizon for anybody who still hasn't played it yet. This isn't a Horizon spoiler cast. But in that game, there were two main quest lines, both of which revealed different aspects of the story, and then they came together and it all made sense at the end. I feel like Horizon did the two separate stories coming together a little bit better than Death Stranding did.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about comparing Death Stranding to other games, I actually wrote a few notes after I finished the game about a game that shares surface similarities to it, but does everything else the absolute opposite of Death Stranding, and it's why I like that game a lot more than Death Stranding. So I don't know if it's okay if I go on a little bit of a tangent or not, Brandon.
Let me just add one point
Sure.
real quick before you do, if it is like a long thing and I end up forgetting this. A lot of people talk about Death Stranding being some kind of like new genre. To me, like I feel like Journey did this back in like what 2012. Like a lot
Yeah.
of ways of like certain, helping each other out but not really knowing their name in a way. I just wanted to say that. I don't know if that's the game you're talking about that you wanted to compare to. It sounds like it's a different game that you're going to talk about.
Yeah, the game is Inside. I don't know if either of you have played Inside.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I played it Inside. I loved Inside.
Anyways, okay. So how they're similar on the surface, they both have a very surreal science fiction story, and the main gameplay in both of them is traversal. Other than that, they are like the opposite of each other. So I'm going to talk about that and why I think Inside does this much better than Death Stranding. Okay, so in Death Stranding, the story has a lot of exposition, which I really don't like. I think it makes the mystery less interesting when they explain everything, and not just once, but multiple times for some of the things. In Inside, there's not even any dialogue in the game, and everything is left up to like what you think it is, which I don't think should have been what they did with Death Stranding, but I like how Inside does that better. Okay, so Death Stranding is also very, very long, and I think this is an issue with a lot of modern games, not just this one. Is I feel like many games now, they try to be as long as possible on purpose because they want to give players like value.
Yep.
But I think that makes them drawn out and boring. I'm also someone who doesn't want to spend that much time playing a game unless I like really, really love it. So
I mean, even like Sony games now are like
Yeah.
25-hour big single player games instead of the normal 12-hour that we saw last generation.
yeah. So Death Stranding is like 50 hours long. Inside is 2 to 3 hours long, and I love it way more. So Death Stranding, the gameplay, it's like a peaceful hiking simulator, I would say. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I think it's actually really interesting.
It's pretty accurate, not gonna lie.
Yeah. And sometimes Death Stranding can be very rewarding, but sometimes it's just tedious. With Inside, every level is designed as a puzzle of how you get from point A to point B, and it's genius how each level is laid out. Like, everything is thought out in that game, and it never like wastes your time, I would say. Then in Death Stranding, like there's combat that I don't think needs to be in the game. In Inside, all of the gameplay serves the story and is a part of it, which I didn't feel was the case in Death Stranding. Okay, and let's see, one more point. Death Stranding has long cutscenes that they really separate the story from the gameplay. And in Inside, the story is told through the gameplay, which is just really well done. And I think that's what video games should do with their stories, and instead of just saying, for this hour, you're watching a cutscene. I think things such as what I would call movie game hybrids, I think they can exist and work in games such as Naughty Dog's games. But I do think it's a little drastic when you're watching a cutscene for that long. Like, they were pretty much all really great cutscenes, but at that point, it sort of like ceases to be a game for a moment. So,
Well, I mean, I think there's places for different games to coexist. I mean, hell, like then you'll see Telltale as like a very boring movie
Oh God.
in that way.
anyways,
get
that
me
was my
started on
short
that.
little piece on why I think Inside is a game that that executes on a similar premise very differently, but much more effectively.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Well,
yeah, I can see what you
congratulations,
mean,
good
but then you
job.
kind of sacrifice the characters in that way because I mean, not like you can't have like
Yeah.
meaningful dialogue. While
I'm not
through
saying
gameplay.
everything
I
in
know what
Death
you mean. I
Stranding
can see what you
should be
mean.
like it is
Yeah.
in Inside. I'm just saying
Mhm.
it took a similar premise and did something.
No, I know what you mean because
better.
like in Death Stranding, whenever you have these cutscenes or like in these places you never access when you're playing, because you're always outside when you're playing. But like in a lot of these cutscenes, like you're either in like a boardroom or underground talking to someone.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like you are completely like, oh, you reached the destination. Here's your reward. It's this cutscene. You're gonna listen to it until you're done, and then you're gonna go back out in the world and rinse and repeat. Yeah, I know what you mean by that. By the way, quick thought: if anyone here hasn't played Inside that's watching this video, play Inside. It's really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Where do we want to continue? I guess I'll let Ian respond to what Zach said.
Well, I mean, geez, I don't even know. You said Telltale, and I had like this Vietnam flashback. Ironic that I mentioned
Speaking of Vietnam, yeah.
Yeah,
I was like Telltale, because I don't like Telltale games at all. But that's basically like all I have to say in response to that comment.
It's interesting that you don't like Telltale, but you like Death Stranding. Not trying to compare them as like Death Stranding being a movie, but like.
No, I mean, you're right. I actually thought about that myself, because the main reason that I don't like Telltale games is because I feel like they're just interactive movies. But then you could say that about almost any game. I feel like Telltale was weaker because, for me anyway, and I know a lot of people do not share this opinion at all. For me, it felt like there was no gameplay. All I was doing was just pressing buttons. And yeah, I know all you do when you play games is press buttons, but there was no actual like mechanics or anything. It was
There's
just
no thought process. It's just reacting to what's on the screen.
Yeah, it's basically one big quick time event, but there's no time limit. Almost.
Yeah.
No time limit.
That's true.
So
Yeah, I get
What do you
that.
think of? Yeah. Okay. Actually, I'm not gonna ask that question because that'd be really off topic. So yeah, in terms of just Death Stranding overall, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about Cliff in general.
yes.
Just to end it off, what did you guys think about the ending? Were you satisfied throughout this whole journey? What they did, what Kojima went for, in terms of uniting? It had like a very wholesome kind of ending, I guess we could say.
I haven't cried that much since The Last of Us.
Damn.
Yeah, I was in tears.
Yeah, I think the ending and a few other elements in the game should have been turned into a movie, and they cut out a lot of other things in the story that I felt were unnecessary. But maybe that's just me.
I could see that.
Yeah. It was very weird because like I never really pictured Death Stranding ending while playing the game.
Neither.
I didn't know what it would look like when the game would end, and I guess technically because it is one of those open world you could do any delivery at any time, it doesn't really have a definitive ending. But in terms of like how the story concluded, it was pretty low key, and not gonna lie, like I did like the reveal and everything like that. Like it was kind of beautiful in a way that it wasn't like some big event, like it was just kind of just you're gonna incinerate baby, you decide not to. Just the whole finding out everything that happened and kind of completing that kind of mystery. I will say I didn't like how the ending was kind of just answering that question about who Cliff was, and I mean not like it was answered necessarily there, but like when all the pieces kind of finally come together and you can kind of see what Kojima was trying to go for. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. As I said though, like it's gonna be very controversial. I don't really like what they did with Cliff. Like to me, he was like this very interesting character that I wanted to know why he was coming after me, like so aggressively. And then when I got that question that, oh, you are his son and stuff like that, I was just kind of, it didn't really hit me that hard. Like it just kind of took away from his character for me personally. Like I don't know if it's just how the execution was, but to me, like Cliff's interest for me like died off, and just, I don't know, like I didn't really, like I get maybe it's because I'm not like some kind of father that has a child and I can't like relate to that in a way, but just like his reasoning and mysterious nature for why he was coming after you, because I already kind of figured he was the dad of the baby, and it essentially was that. It was just the baby was you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did have that kind of brief period of like, oh, that's kind of not something I was expecting, and I had to think about that for a second. But as I think about how like the game kind of wrapped that way, I was just kind of also, I don't know, like I expected Sam to be this guy that wasn't really important at all, and they kind of added importance to him at the end. So that was a little bit of a just kind of like, I guess I had to do that. But
well, he does have dooms, so that does make
yeah, I
him
mean he
stand
does
out.
have dooms, but yeah, I guess that's true.
I
want to add one thing real quick now that you say that. It just reminded me of something. I feel like like whenever you go to these like ports in these cities, they say like population of thousands that are living underground, but like the game feels so dead. Like you never see any of them. Like
that's true.
You see this, you know, the one delivery mission when you're delivering the girl to the junk dealer, because they're connected. Like that's the one time you see people actually interact. So I would have loved to see some more interactivity between the people, because like it felt like very much like you're just going and these people live behind these. I mean, they do, I guess, live behind these bunkers, but you only get a hologram of like one guy. So I would have liked to see the world explored a little bit more in depth about like how the people are living underground a bit. We never really get to see that kind of side of Death Stranding, and most likely won't, because I don't think this game will get a sequel, but we'll see.
As far as the cities go, the not cities, have you noticed that the cities themselves are actually behind these electric fences, like these big walls?
Oh, like the things that you pass by that like detect you as Sam.
Yeah, because you go to, whenever you go to one of the cities, you enter the distribution center, which is basically the place where like you drop off your gear and then they take the cargo and deliver it across the city. But I think it's Port Knot. If you go to Port Knot City and you stand up on that hill that overlooks the distro center before you go down to the actual building, you can see the city behind the distro center.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing is when it came to the bunkers and all I saw was holograms, I got this extremely lonely, like I was completely isolated feeling. And when I saw the chiral artist actually step out of the bunker for the first time, it was probably like a good 10 or 15 hours into the game. And I was like, yes, another living human being.
Yeah.
That's
finally.
not one of these
I think that was the point, was to make you feel lonely and isolated. But at the same time, like, I feel like
but there should have been like, I mean, they could have gave you a reason for why you're connecting people, is to actually see the people and like how it changed them, and they did for that one mission, but you never see that really.
I just thought of something that might be somewhat genius actually. Maybe that makes sense because you're playing as Sam, and Sam literally doesn't give a fuck. That's what I loved about his character. It's like, no, fuck America. Like even at the end of the game, and part of what was great with the ending is that he finally like figures out how to feel. Like the whole journey didn't really do it for him, but it was losing BB and then realizing that his father had lost him when he was a BB. It finally lets him feel. And also this was like the only media where I've ever seen a baby actually get shot on screen, which was kind of shocking.
Yeah,
I guess that's true. I've seen it in a comic, but yeah.
So my thoughts on the ending here, because we kind of jumped around to a couple different topics.
Yeah, I did.
Like the game.
Cliff, I loved Cliff. He was and still is my favorite character, especially after finishing it. And honestly, I never really liked Amelie, even from the beginning.
Amelie, I don't care
character
for her at all. Like she's, I don't. There's nothing like, yeah.
From the beginning of the game, I was kind of like, okay, I don't really care about you. I'm interested. I want to learn more about who you are and what your importance is in the story, and why you have this strange ghostly appearance, which we eventually, of course, do find out, and it's pretty foreboding. But by the end of the game, when we see, and here's something that I think is actually pretty genius. The game does the whole fake ending thing where you hug Amelie and then you go to the beach, and then after that, after you come back, you see the real ending with Cliff and Die Hardman and Bridget. And by the end of the game, not only did I absolutely hate Amelie for what had happened to Cliff, but I hated the fact that that fucking bastard made us hug her before seeing what happened. Because after I saw that final cutscene, I was like, I fucking hate Amelie so much. She is literally the reason for all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, she was picked as the end immunity, which they talked about, like, different Death Strandings, like, we presume like the dinosaurs had their own Death Stranding, and she was just chosen as like the end immunity. I forgot what term they used.
I think it was extinction entity.
Extinction entity. That's the entity I was looking for. Never thought I'd say that in my life. But regardless, like, yeah, she was chosen as that, but she just didn't seem like she had a soul at all. Like, whenever she was picked, I mean, I guess maybe it's because Amelie technically is, like, not Bridget, so Bridget's the one that's actually human and aged, and while Amelie is, like, the never aging side of her, her other half.
Yeah.
The way that I saw it is she was sort of like a godlike being.
Yeah, she was chosen to be like this god, but like split up between her human self that would continue to age. And
well, I think that what they alluded to during the cutscene with Hartman, where he's talking about the umbilical cord, and he shows the dinosaurs and Neanderthals and all the different time periods. I think what they were alluding to is that the extinction entity, whenever it does come into existence, the soul of that creature is on the beach, and the physical body that is living on the earth is just a shell that is actually on the earth, if that makes any sense. That's why the umbilical cord is part of those creatures, because it physically connects them to the beach where their other half is.
Weird question, you kind of reminded me of this fact. Do we ever get an explanation why BB is inside of Sam? Whenever you die, it goes into his mouth and you see the baby. I thought that would be something that
I think it's just a weird, trippy thing because they have an emotional connection. That's what I saw it as.
The way
I fully expected that to be revealed as like some kind of big part of Death Stranding, and it never really did. It was just kind of like a weird thing of just, and whenever you res yourself, you have like Lou inside of you. Just
the way
I guess we'll leave it at that.
The way I interpreted it is the baby inside Sam is Sam. It's Sam as the baby, not Lou.
Maybe you're
but
right.
It's Sam.
So you're saying, that's the baby that's Cliff Law.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But he grew up, so why would he still?
I think it's
because he died
as
a baby.
He died as the baby, and it's inside of. Okay.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that make more sense if that was a woman? I don't know.
Who?
Like, why? I'm trying to understand. Like, why would the baby be inside of him?
I don't think.
I know he died, but like.
I don't think it's physically, like, legitimately inside of him. I think it's more of a visual representation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because Kojima's weird.
I was gonna say it seems more of like one of those things where Kojima is just trying to, I don't know.
It's almost like the game is slapping you in the face with it the whole time, because every time you die, you see the baby, and you're like, why the fuck is there a baby in this esophagus?
I mean, it has to be a meaning, because like it's literally like in a lot of the trailers and everything. That's why I fully expected it to be kind of like some big reveal.
Well, and then
I'm sure there's an answer out there.
I just thought of something.
What's that?
Sorry, Ian, but something that might make sense, but I'm not sure if it does. Okay, so Sam as a baby was shot through the stomach, and
that's where he has his scar.
Amelie, she like patches it up with her powers or whatever. So maybe the baby being in older Sam's stomach has to do with the fact that the baby died by being shot in its stomach, so then it's in Sam's stomach.
I see. And the reason why he doesn't die, obviously, is because he has the power to resurrect.
Yeah, which is given to him by Amelie, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still find it so weird how he's chosen out of everyone.
I think the reason is because, when you go to Edge Knot City and you have a network activation key, which is another BB pod, right? Some of the BBs are used the way that they're used on Sam for, BT detection and whatever else they use them for. And other BBs were chosen, I should say, for what they call human sacrifices, which basically means the BB stays in the pod forever and simply serves as a human sacrifice to use the chiral network.
Oh yeah, they talked about that. That was a weird thing. I wish they would have talked about a bit more about that.
Yeah, that is what Sam, as a BB, was supposed to be used for. And when Bridget ended up shooting Cliff and killing Sam as BB, because Sam was a repatriate, that meant he was no longer able to be used as a human sacrifice. So Bridget was like, well, I fucked this up, so I guess I have to raise him now. That's kind of how
Or give him a
things.
new purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how things went. So
Especially, yeah, she took him as his own. Yeah, that's true. That's probably the reason why.
Also, this is off topic, but a quick shout out to Deadman. I thought he was a really well done character.
Yeah.
He's actually played by Jesse Corti, even though he looks like Guillermo del Toro.
Toro, yeah.
In the credits, I think Jesse Corti should have been given more credit for it because he's the real actor of the character. But yeah, I thought that character was really good. Maybe we should talk about a few more of the characters that we haven't touched on.
I think Deadman was like one of my favorites alongside. I think it was Deadman and Higgs that were like my personal favorite characters, and Cliff. Like the acting wise, I think Cliff is still the best in terms of Matt Mickelson's performance.
Yeah.
Even though like the ending didn't hit me as which like I just expected more from Cliff. Like I don't know, like maybe it was just a little too simple. Like I figured it would be something bigger than it actually was in terms of just everything that was happening with him. But in terms of like performance wise, Mads Mikkelsen, I fully think he was the best out of all of them. Like every single scene you had with him, you just had chills. At least I did, and like the full like attention was on him. Other highlights for me were I liked Mama. I liked what they did with her and her sister. That was pretty interesting. And I like how all the characters' names are literally so just dead on what the person is. Dead man, with his heart. Mama because of the story with the baby and her. Hartman because of his heart condition. I think the only one that doesn't have that is Sam, literally. Fragile. Yeah. I mean, we all know.
But yeah. Sam does have, Bridges, his last name, which, in the ending, there's the pun connection with that. It actually works. It isn't as cheesy as it sounds when you just say it or think about it.
It's so funny how all the names are literally dead on.
Yeah, and then I thought that Die Hard Man was the most boring character until the last hour of the game, where he turned into one of the best characters in the game, and I'm just like, why did you waste this character on just the ending? Like, he's in the game so much, like throughout the game, yet I literally didn't give a shit about that character until the end, where that actor gave a really great performance, and it was an interesting moral
choice
dilemma that he was in.
They had like such an opportunity because they literally built him about possibly being a villain when they talked about how he was possibly like spying in on him, which never really ended up happening, did it? That was an interesting aspect that I thought they were going to go for, and they never really continued with. I did like that ending scene. That was pretty cool. I wish they would have did more with this character from the beginning to end, because they like talked about how he joined like during that time, and we realized why because of the ending of what he did with Bridget, and what he had to do with Cliff. But I just wish that he would have did a little bit more before that final hour, like you said.
Yeah, because
quite frankly, he's used so much. Yeah,
you basically get 49 hours of him being a boring person who just tells you what to do, and then 1 hour of him being a great character. It's just so unbalanced.
I thought there would be something behind his mask too. Like there is some meaning behind it, but like I thought his identity was like really important, but it wasn't really. It was just that he wanted to hide his face.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just interesting. I feel like they should have used him a bit more. Ian, what were your favorite characters out of all of them? I know you said you liked Cliff a lot.
Yeah, I loved Cliff. Cliff is my favorite character. I liked Hartman because he was relatable in some sense, but he didn't get nearly enough screen time. Yeah, and I know why they didn't do that. There was only so much they could fit in the story, but I just feel
he
like
had a long ass cutscene though.
he had some of the longest cutscenes in the game. Actually, he did. Mm-hmm. But I would say I like Deadman because of how funny he is. He was the funniest character by far.
Yeah, he just felt like a relatable character, like just someone that would be in our real world.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
And the thing that I feel is most relatable about Deadman is the fact that he's alive and he exists, but he doesn't feel like he's connected to anything, because
it's kind of like
that's a lot of people. Really relatable. I liked Mama, even though she was more boring than the other characters.
Yeah.
Once she turned into like the mixture, like the hybrid of her and her sister, because like they're essentially one character that were split between the two. Once she actually like came back to her like true self, like I pretty much lost all interest in her. Like Mama was an interesting character, but once they combined her with her sister, like even though it's the same voice, it's like it felt like a new character, and it's just kind of weird.
Here's the thing that really got me. Mama's backstory, again, brought me to tears. That watching her cutscene and having her explain what happened to her was very sad. A lot of the characters have sad backstories in this game. But what really, oh God, Fragile, don't even get me started. What really got me about Mama was when you sever the connection between her and the baby, or the BET baby, I should say. And it was at that moment, that very moment when Sam cuts the cord, that I realized the cutscene, the first cutscene when you go to Mama's lab and you see the big BT coming down from the ceiling trying to grab the baby. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was at that point I realized that the BT that was trying to grab the baby is the father.
Oh.
It's the father. And I just lost it, dude. The waterworks just fucking full bore.
I never realized that.
That was so sad. Once she rejoined with Lochna, I was kind of like, well, this is weird because she's dead, but she's not. So, like, is she a new character now? Are they both a new character? You know, like how you mix red and blue, you get a different color. Like, what the hell?
Just like, what the hell is she?
Yeah, now exactly. I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to think about this anymore.
Yeah, it was sort of like a little bit too weird, I think.
I don't really know what to think of it. Like,
personally, I just lost interest in her character. I mean, like, it was so weird. Like, I was like, I don't really care for this person. Like Lochna. Because I didn't care for the sister, and it looked more like her sister, and I was just like, I don't know.
Lochna really didn't do anything either.
I mean, Mama is still there because it's like revealed that she's always still there. She's just with her sister.
Yeah, but after that point, they didn't really do anything with the character. She was just kind of...
I mean, her story was pretty much complete. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's like, I'm happy to be here. That was it.
Higgs was probably like up there though. Like all his cutscenes were super cool. And Higgs, I loved his character a lot. And Troy Baker did such a good job. Yeah, like, Troy Baker's always kind of memed upon about being in everything, but he's so talented. Like he played Cliff so good.
He's
like
such a fun
Troy
character.
Baker's actually known for Cliff for me now. Like that's one of his best characters in my opinion.
I mean,
Higgs, not Cliff, but yeah.
Like yeah, that's what I meant. Like even over Sam, I'd say. Like I'm not gonna turn this into an Uncharted discussion. Like I didn't really care about Sam too much as a character.
Oh my God!
Like,
honestly,
Uncharted 4 is the best one.
Honestly,
no, two.
As far as Death Stranding goes, because I know that's gonna get confusing really quick. I was not a big fan of Sam. I liked him enough, and I I thought he was a good character to put the player behind because there's a lot of room for you to impression yourself on him and his actions. But as a character by himself, like if this was a movie, I would not be totally relatable to Sam at all.
Yeah, Sam just doesn't really like talk at all. Like he's really reminiscent of like Daryl from early seasons of The Walking Dead, so I know what Kojima was probably kind of influenced on.
Yeah.
Like he's like literally the same character. Like I'll link you guys to video. I mean not essentially the same character, but I'll link you to kind of like different performances from Norman, from Daryl, and Sam.
Okay.
But it's like very inspired, at least I could say. Yeah, like I know why it's supposed to be like that. Like it's supposed to be hesitant at the very beginning, and as he forms his bond as BB, he finally finds kind of like a purpose besides just being a porter near the end.
Yeah.
Getting kind of closer on his own life.
I think maybe it's boring because like that character arc has been done so many times. And
it's not even that. Like
we're
just talking about like him in general was just being kind of dull, not really talking much with any kind of emotion.
Yeah, but okay, a touch that I did like, although I'm not sure that it really fit with the rest of his character, was how in the in the private room he would interact with you as a player and break the fourth wall. I thought that was really funny.
Weird. I didn't like it. There's some weird things from Kojima that I didn't like in this game, like the monster placements and the breaking the fourth wall. Whenever you get in like any private space, like that was so like the first time it happened to me, it just threw me off completely.
I loved that. That just made it for me.
And probably
It just felt very Kojima.
Yeah, probably my favorite one is if you I think it's if you have him drink more than 2 beers, then he'll shake the can and just make it like blow up in your face.
Right in your face.
Yeah.
I love that.
And he's always
all the
like
stuff that.
Yeah. He's always
Whenever you'd look
winking
at like the
you and
toys, like in the
pointing.
back, the figurines, he'd always like point at you, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, really weird.
But you know
Hold on. One more thing that has to do with breaking the fourth wall. I liked how BB would breathe heart-shaped bubbles.
Yes.
That was really cute.
That was adorable.
Maybe that's not quite breaking the fourth wall, but something that's
also
just
another
not
breaking
realistic.
the fourth wall is Hartman giving you likes.
Oh yeah,
that was good. I liked that.
I actually liked that though. That was pretty kind of clever.
Sometimes he would take back the likes.
Oh yeah, that was funny. Like whenever
like.
you touch something or something like that, yeah.
But speaking
or like you'd answer a question wrong.
Speaking of the fourth wall, Higgs broke the fourth wall like crazy.
Oh yeah.
He had like no fucks given when it came to breaking the fourth wall. I mean, especially in his first boss fight, not the one where you fight.
A good old-fashioned boss fight, huh?
Yeah, like he refers to it as a boss fight. The fight before that, where you have to kill the giant BT, he's always like, "Time to reset. Let the game resume." Like he doesn't care at all.
The fucking ending with Sam and he's like, "I'm Mario and you're Princess Peach."
Oh, that was so
Princess Peach. That was a weird ass line. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, some of the lines in this game are really bad, and I don't know if it's because they were written in Japanese, maybe, and then translated and sort of lost in translation.
No, I doubt it. I don't know how you go. You go from Mario to Mario. There's no way you go at that from anything else. Like, that's just, it was a weird kind of, I don't like, that's like, it's like so weird. Like this game has so many different things. On one way you have this beautiful story. On one hand you get this weird repetitive game, and on the other hand like you have all these kind of weird breaking the fourth wall moments. Like it's interesting.
You want to talk about bad lines? I think one of the most like corny, cringeworthy lines to me is when Fragile punches Higgs and goes, "You're damaged."
Your damaged goods.
I was like, that delivery didn't come out right.
Yeah, she always said, "I'm fragile, but not that fragile."
Yeah,
like, she kept saying that. Like at the first time, I'm like, "That's kind of a clever line," and then she kept saying, "I'm like, I get it."
Like that's her fucking catchphrase. Like someone once told me, "With great power comes great responsibility." I've heard it a million times. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other examples. I'm sure they're there, but
I got tired of that pretty quick.
Yeah.
I did find it odd though. Here's another thing. I know he did this on purpose. The fact that Fragile is basically old except for her face, right? Like the rest of her body is completely
her whole body's aged.
I got such a weird reaction after knowing that, because her face is beautiful. I love her actor, by the way. She was great in Spectre. I can't wait to see No Time to Die. She's going to be fantastic in there. But her face is beautiful. And then you know what's under her suit, but you see her suit and you're like, is she hot or not? Like,
nice in the suit. I know what you mean.
You don't.
You just know she's like super aged.
It's so sexually confusing.
It's so weird. It's just weird to think about. Like, I never really thought like about the whole time fall. Like, that's such a cool concept of someone having part of their body aged and other part of their body not.
Dude,
which is like,
you want to know what?
Like, imagine if it was just her face. That would like be even weirder.
Oh god, that would.
Oh god, I did not want to think about that.
You want to know something cool about the time fall?
Well, yeah, what's up?
Fall is literally a phrase brought to life. Whenever time falls around, everything it touches gets old real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the phrase, "This is getting old fast," brought to a real visual,
it's like taking the idea of something aging, but like giving it actually like a physical, tangible kind of meaning, or like that's interesting.
It's an actual form. Also, like, I thought that was.
Can I just say, like, out of all like the post-apocalyptic ideas, I think Timefall is the one that would scare me the most. Like that's just such a brutal kind of concept.
That's why no one leaves their home in the game.
Like that's like it's literally just, it makes it so like you literally can't go outside. unless you're like so technological like far that like you can predict the weather like they have on their devices. Or
I feel like that was a
take the
missed
risk.
opportunity as well, because having the threat of timefall and the BTs that come with timefall, only having it rain in certain spots is such a missed opportunity. I wanted to have that constant underlying low-key anxiety of, is it going to rain? Oh fuck.
But
Is
you
it
know
gonna
it's
rain?
like in these period spots,
Yeah,
which
but
is kind of annoying.
you know where it's at, and that completely lessens the threat. And again,
I wish they would have made timefall and the BTs kind of separate, like, because it like they are separate ideas, but like a lot of times whenever there's timefall, there's BTs pretty much.
they're in the same spot.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wish they would have took that out of the way and just made timefall its whole kind of like separate. Like both of them, honestly. Like both, like I know when you get into like random generation, it can kind of add that like sense that it's not like meant to be, like it's not how Kojima wanted it to be. But like at the same time, like I feel like it would have been way better if you just had these two different ideas of like BTs being in the world and the timefall being in the world. Like I know the timefall is part of the whole BT aspect, but like if they just kind of like changed that up a bit and just had those two separately for like gameplay moments, that would have been interesting to have like those two random factors out there. Yeah, exactly.
Because I think when it comes to the story, like if it was just a movie and there wasn't any gameplay, I think Timefall is a really cool like sort of omen that the BTs are coming, but it is a danger on its own, so
yeah, that's why I'm saying like them being like this kind of a bummer, because they could have so much to do with like it just like I'm speaking purely off of like gameplay, how much they could work with if they just made them two separate kind of factors. That would be pretty cool. I mean, as it is, timefall really only affects your goods, which is kind of annoying. Like, I mean, you wouldn't want it so Norman Reedus would be getting old by like chapter 5, but like I don't know, like you're never really truly affected by it besides like the vehicles wearing down and your goods wearing down, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the fact that they signal that BTs are near.
I just wish that the timefall would have been handled a little bit more like dynamic weather. I think that would have made it far more threatening.
Yeah. Also,
so interesting. Like
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just one quick thing though. I think it would have been good if this game had a day-night cycle. Like I thought it was weird that it was always daytime.
Yes.
That is true. I never really thought about that until now. But yeah, you're completely right. It is always kind of stagnant, the same.
Thank you. And all of this stuff that we're talking about gameplay-wise, the whole weather system and day-night cycle, like this is all stuff that was in Metal Gear. And it's not like Konami can get him in trouble for taking the idea of dynamic weather and day and night cycles, because other games have them too.
And there's no reason not to have it. Like, there's no...
Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you? I just don't understand the reasoning behind that. I really don't.
There really isn't a reason why there's no daytime, nighttime cycle. Besides maybe story purposes you don't want to show. But I mean, even then, like, they always allude that it's, like, taking him days.
And, yeah. Also, it would be interesting if during nighttime, like, they add something like it's harder to see,
BTs,
or there's
BTs
different
like
types of
variable
BTs at night. That would have been interesting.
Exactly. Like, there's like more ideas that I wish would have happened. Like, I don't want a Death Stranding 2, but like I just wish like these would have been implemented.
Well, did you hear what Kojima said about sequels?
No.
What?
He said that he would start from zero if he did a Death Stranding sequel.
So he'd just do it again, but a different story?
Basically, he would start from scratch. He wouldn't bounce off of the events of this game. He wouldn't try to do a direct sequel. He may not even do anything that's in the same...
He says that about sequels, but then what is the Metal Gear Solid series then?
Well, Konami had a lot of influence on that.
Yeah.
He didn't...
5 games? He didn't want to make 5 games, and they made him make so many games that he didn't want to?
He wasn't off the hook for that. I don't know what else. I don't know a lot about the Metal Gear series.
You're telling me this man made 2, 3, 4, 5, and the other games against his will?
Not completely against his will, but I think.
Sorry, but I think what Ian's trying to say is more that that may have been what he wanted to do with Metal Gear, but Death Stranding is different, and having a traditional sequel wouldn't really work with Death Stranding in the same way that it would work
Right.
with Metal Gear.
Well, I know that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying like his comment on having a sequel in general. I mean, I guess I know. Yeah, like he's talking about purely just Death Stranding when he says that quote. Then,
Yeah. And
which I don't want a sequel to Death Stranding. Like, there's no reason to have it. Like, it would have to be a completely. It wouldn't even be Death Stranding. It would have to be a completely different message. Like,
yeah, there's no way that
Yeah.
you're gonna top the story for this game
unless you're gonna be like some kind of rebel kid that's gonna like try to like disconnect everything.
Well, he had talked about doing horror. He's very interested in making a horror game, and a lot of the theories. So after PT, so would I. A lot of the things I've heard is that if he does go through with a Death Stranding sequel and he keeps to his word and he wants to start from zero, quote unquote, I think the best way to do that is to have a sequel not follow the events of any of the characters or setting or plot of the first game. Have it set in potentially a different part of the world with a different cast of characters, but still during or even before the events of the first game, to completely separate itself from everything else, but still technically be in the same
At that
universe.
point, why be Death Stranding? Like, why take the same ideas?
That's a question I couldn't answer for you.
He'd have to really want to revisit the idea of a Death Stranding event.
Yeah, I would rather.
At that point, there's no really reason to.
I would rather Death Stranding be just a one-off game that doesn't have sequels.
I think it.
Yeah, I mean, usually
fits.
when people say like they wanted Last of Us to be like standalone and they want Bloodborne, I've always been against both of those. But with Death Stranding, I don't like. It's literally been complete. Like I saw the potential with Last of Us, like a sequel being there, and that's what we're seeing with Part 2. And I still see that with Bloodborne. But with Death Stranding, I literally don't see a reason to continue Death Stranding, especially with his comments on what he wants to do and what it would look like. There's no reason to continue it.
I don't think Bloodborne should have a sequel. I might have misspoke earlier.
That's no, it
misheard you.
does. It can have a sequel.
No.
Yes,
Just
it
make
can.
more games in the same genre. That's what FromSoft should do.
Yeah, but that's what Sekiro was.
Yeah, and that's why it's so
You
good.
literally got it. Now we can get Bloodborne too. I just want that same kind of setting again and that same kind of world. But like they could do so much with it. Like there's more potential with that world.
But I think all of the comments on Death Stranding not needing a sequel are pretty accurate because, first of all, you're not going to reconnect America twice.
Yeah,
I could maybe
disconnect America once.
I could maybe see that same plot taking place on a different part of the world, but the likelihood of that happening is extremely low.
That happens again. I'm not playing it. I'm not going for that again.
Yeah.
Just to disconnect Russia. Or some shit like that.
Reconnect China. Like, no, we've already done this shit before. Like, it's the same thing. So I don't see that being a good gameplay design for a sequel. I do not see at all how you could top the story for this. If there is a sequel for Death Stranding, the story is guaranteed to be less interesting.
Yeah,
right off the
think
gate.
he would just have to make a brand new game.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately if you add a sequel to Death Stranding, we already know what Death Stranding is.
Yeah.
So you're taking away like most of the power behind that. Yeah. Yeah, just whatever Kojima does next, I want it to be something new. I mean, it has to be something new because he doesn't own the rights to any of his previous games besides Death Stranding, which you have already just said that. Well, I mean, even Sony owns that actually.
Something that I wanted to mention, mostly to Ian. I don't know if you've played PT, Brandon.
I played PT.
Oh, okay, so to both of you guys, I haven't played it, but I heard about this. There may be.
I didn't complete PT, mind you.
Okay, there may be.
It's like a weird kind of.
Not
thing.
exactly a connection between PT and Death Stranding, but maybe it's just like a reference. I guess the mother of the weird dead baby in PT is named Lisa, which is the same name as Cliff's wife.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I haven't played PT. I don't know that much about what goes on in the game, but
I don't see why they'd be connected unless.
You guys, I'm not going to get into this because we would be here for literally hours. But PT is a crazy enigma. There are so many hidden things and hidden meanings and different interpretations for that game The most popular one that I've heard is that PT was actually a foreshadow of Kojima leaving Konami, because when you finish the game, there is a piece of dialogue that someone speaks, and they say, I don't remember it verbatim, but it says, like, Dad was always so boring. He would always watch the same kind of shows and play the same kind of games, but I will be coming back and I'll be bringing my new toys with me. And literally, like, what, a couple months after that, Kojima left Konami and he came back with Death Stranding with Sony's help. So it's kind of like a weird, did he plan this and hint at it in PT, or was it a coincidence?
I think he wanted to leave Konami for a while,
Yeah.
considering what they did to him, and I've heard what they've done to him in terms of like locking him up and how he was trying to like secretly tell his coworkers that he needed help.
Yeah, I think PT was a big like, cry for help, but
it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's always like riding the line of being a genius and just being kind of crazy, you know?
Those two go well together.
Yeah.
So, anything else you guys want to talk about Death Stranding related that we didn't hit on in particular? I'm trying to think of something. Nothing really comes to mind at the moment.
There's so much in the game, it's kind of hard to put it all.
Do you see this becoming a genre, like some people like to put it?
So
no.
I was gonna say no.
Here's the thing about that. I always get irritated with the reviewers who are like, oh, well, if this is a Strand game, I don't want to play any more Strand games because the gameplay is fucking annoying. When he mentions the genre being called a Strand game, he is solely referring to the player connectivity, the multiplayer aspect. A Strand game can feature any kind of story, any kind of gameplay, but as long as it features the aspect of gameplay where other players can leave objects and structures for other players to find, it's a Strand game. That's what the genre.
Dark Souls
is a Strand game. Yeah.
Basically, more or less.
It's a Strand game.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, he's acting like it's the first ever one, but like I think of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and then I also think of Journey. I mean, Journey's a different one. It's more active at the same time.
Journey's interesting.
But it still is about connection with strangers, which is what he's trying to get at.
Yeah.
Because like I was literally watching a documentary. He wanted players that just game by themselves alone at night to feel that kind of sort of connectivity with the world and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Journey,
I like how he did that without making it full on multiplayer. One thing that I didn't like though, and this is a pretty small thing because it didn't happen to me very often, but sometimes I would fail a delivery and have to go back to a previous checkpoint, and the same player built structures, I can't talk, that were there in the past weren't there this time. So I had to navigate it a different way, and that felt weird to me, that each time the game loads, it would switch up where things are.
It would do that? I never noticed that.
That is actually intentional. You know what Strand contracts are, right?
I actually never figured that part out.
So if you hit the options button while you're playing and you go into the little handcuff menu and you go to the left and down to bridge link, it'll show you all of the players that you have interacted with and who have interacted with you. And an interaction counts as if they've used your equipment, or if they've liked your equipment, or if they've picked up your lost cargo. And if there's a player whose objects are in your world that you use frequently, you can press triangle to make a Strand contract with that player and keep their structures in your world permanently.
Oh.
I noticed that. I never did that personally, but I noticed that. But for me, on my playthrough in general, I had the same things appearing. Like, I would literally fully turn off the console, I'd come back for another session, everything was still there.
Same here.
So, I guess maybe for Zach's case, you could use that.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how it determines whose objects stay in your world. It might be kind of like a weird matchmaking lobby system where if you're put in a lobby with a certain amount of players, their stuff will stay in your world. I'm not sure how it works at all. There's no answers to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I never really got the idea, like, and sometimes I would be fighting a BT and there'd be like a player silhouette that would like throw me items and stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
How do you do that? Like, how do you even choose to do that? Like, I never even came across like the possibility of joining someone else's game and throwing
I
items
think
at
that's
them.
when you die and you're in the scene, you can go up to other players' bodies and they turn white, and they're white when they throw you objects. So I think it's the players that you connect with while you're in the scene, but I'm not sure.
So like while you're floating
Do
in
you
the ocean okay.
do you know how to
Because
trigger
I noticed
that? Right.
I know I know what you're talking about,
Mhm.
but I didn't know that would actually do something for other players. Because you never see that when you do that.
Yeah, I think Zach's probably right. Speaking of the seam, do you know what happens if you find your own soul?
Uh,
Not Sam's
What do you mean
body.
by that?
Not Sam's
No.
body, but your own soul.
I don't know.
You
What
don't
would your
know.
no?
Next time you go to the seam, and you can trigger this by jumping off a large cliff and killing yourself. Don't worry, you won't create a void out as long as the BT doesn't eat you. If you go to the seam, press the touchpad and you'll call out and look around for the little visual representation of the call out. You know how like if you shout as Sam, objects around you will have like those little rings that emanate from them.
Yeah.
Look for that in the seam, and you'll see a black body with your gamer tag on it. Go up to it and hold triangle.
Okay.
You just
I mean,
you found that on your own
I'm not
playthrough?
gonna do
Mhm.
it because I'm not gonna play the game again. But
See, I don't see why not. I really don't.
I honestly, now with everything with the standard deliveries, I couldn't care to play the game.
yeah,
I'm
the
just too
game is
addicted.
too long.
I'm just going
I've
to
already
places
given it
I've already
50
been.
hours, and there's nothing
There's
pulling
nothing
me
I've
in to
gained.
want to
Yeah.
put in more hours.
Exactly.
Wow. I guess. Oh well. I guess in that case, I'll just tell you what it does.
Sure.
I'm too addicted to the game to stop, so I'm still going.
So, but that's the thing. Like, I don't
Would
see
you
any
say that
point.
you're
Like,
a
you're
mule,
doing
Ian?
these deliveries.
I actually thought about that, Zach. There was a point in. Okay, so you were talking about roads earlier, and what I do to build the roads, or what I did, I should say, because most of them are already done by now, is I'll put all my cargo in a private locker. I'll take weapons with me, preferably non-lethal. I will raid a mule camp and steal all of their stuff, all their gear, and then I'll take it for myself. And there was a point where I was raiding a mule camp, stealing their lost cargo to deliver it for myself, and I thought, wait, am I a mule now? Hold on.
I mean, you're stealing what was stolen, so.
It's a slippery slope. God, so many puns that actually work in this game.
Yeah, but I'm with Zach. Like, everything about the standard deliveries, I'm just going through old territory that I already have been. I could see the idea of being the sense of community and, like, you know, rebuilding these things and building up roads for other players online, but to me, my time is valued elsewhere with like other games I still gotta play that are in my backlog.
I can see that. I can see that.
Death Stranding isn't coming.
I
Yeah.
usually just do the premium deliveries because I find those a bit more challenging and more fun to complete.
The ones that like add different modifiers and
Yeah.
extreme.
But before we get
cases, like
too far off, the seam, if you find your soul and you hold triangle, you will go inside the mouth of your soul like you do with Sam, and then you'll see a BB inside of your body. And once you get there, the game will let you load a previous save.
Oh,
That's cool.
So kind of a simple.
You can just do that by pausing.
I thought you were about to say like you go through your mouth and you see all your trophies inside your profile.
Well, it's a simple feature, but Zach, you asked, can't you just do that anywhere else? The answer is yes, but the reason you would want to do it in the seam is if you got eaten by a BT or if you fucked up
and you wanted to undo it.
and you want to undo your mistake, then that's
I feel
why.
like that's a kind of like an easy cop out that makes the game even more easy than it already is, though. You know.
So I'm waiting
like-
for one of those things to happen, and a developer had the
Yeah,
option to like.
I
Just turn
was
off your
never
PS4
killed
when
by-
I'm doing so.
Sorry, I kind of talked up.
No go.
But I was never killed by a BT the whole game. I never had a void out happen. I was killed by the terrorists a few times. I like fell off of a cliff once, but that was all.
Mhm.
I purposely got myself killed by a BT to see if it would add up
Yeah.
true to what it does in the cutscenes, and yeah, sure enough, a crater was there.
Yeah, I went on YouTube to see what happens later.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting gameplay things. I was quite fond of Edge Knot City. And with that, with that being said, actually, there's something that I guess I had in mind, but I forgot to bring up earlier. The scaling of the world feels off. And I understand that you have the whole United States. There's no way anybody is going to spend real time walking from one state to another. That's not going to happen in a video game. So I'm not going to like hold that against them. Like, oh, it doesn't take me 3 hours to get from Iowa to Minnesota. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But it just felt odd to me that you have such a large area to play with and you could traverse it so quickly. It just felt a little bit weird. Like almost the scaling was too small. If that makes any sense.
I mean, there
I
is
thought it
also
was
the
alright.
part where you have to take the boat. You have to take the boat,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of like hides some of the rough edges, I guess, with possibly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true. It is kind of like a weird shaped map. I mean, personally, I try not to give it too much thought because it is a weird idea of like visually being able to see the whole United States, but I like your trail that you went on, Sam.
Yeah. And there's
It
a
doesn't-
disconcerting amount of invisible walls too when you try to get outside the map barriers.
I actually
Yeah.
never tried that.
It's still, I'd say it still is pretty impressive considering the size of the world.
It
Like
is.
of games that we have nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be possible one day, maybe with PS5 with the SSDs and like loading all that shit, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, even then, I wouldn't want a like 200 terabyte or 200 gigabyte game on my
God.
PS4.
No thanks. No, but yeah, I wanted to bring mention of that because I found it a little bit strange that, especially in the second area, the road that goes from Lake Knot to South Knot and Mountain Knot City, that road, for me, if I was driving on a road similar to that in real life, it'd be like a half an hour trip.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, like the scaling, yeah, it's like literally like what they say is the whole United States really is like only like maybe slightly bigger than like a city or two.
Yeah, Edge Knot City
Like
felt
real life
really
scale.
small, and there's basically no reason to go back to Edge Knot at all.
Yeah, they're all, yeah, that's true. That's why I don't do any of the standard deliveries. I don't find any going back to any place really worth it at all.
That's where the game's worst boss fight takes place.
What do you mean, Zach?
The one with the giant human like form.
Uh-huh. Why'd you
That's-
think that
God.
one was the worst?
That one, the one with the incredibly long health bar for no reason.
Yeah. Because like you literally just shoot a weak point on it, and it's so easy to dodge anything that it throws at you, and it felt so slow, and I don't even know why that was in the game.
I'm
That's
not
how
sure
I feel
either.
about most of the combat in the game.
Mm-hmm. So I guess final verdict on Death Stranding. Kind of opened it up with this, but at the same time, just concluding thoughts now that we've talked about it for the past hour and a half. I'll let Ian start.
Final thoughts. Well, like I said before, there's so much I could talk about with this game, but there's no way to cover it in the amount of time that most people would watch a YouTube video. So I loved it. It was everything that I thought it was going to be. There are things with it that could have been done better, but I thought it was fantastic. I love the story. I think the story for this game is one of those things that people who don't like video games could sit through. And I feel like that was kind of the point because he talked a lot about movie fans and how he wanted to get people who liked movies to play this game and asked if they were enjoying the game genre as much as the movie genre. So I feel like that was a really intentional choice. But story was great. Gameplay took a while to get used to. It felt weird as hell at first. Ended up really loving it to the point where I'm still going. I think I'm like 88 hours in right now.
Holy crap.
And I finished at 53, so I'm still loving it to death, even though I know a lot of people still aren't playing it.
Damn.
And yeah, those are pretty much my final thoughts. Love the game, love the gameplay. It's not for everybody, and that's okay.
I guess I'll go second. So yeah, Death Stranding, it's one of those games that like I really enjoyed. I definitely have some flaws with it that, you know, I fully stick by still. I definitely don't see myself ever really replaying the game. Like, I don't want to go back to it. It's kind of like Last Guardian to me, where the gameplay was rough and I enjoyed the story, but it's like I want to leave my memories with those memories. I don't really want to definitely like revisit, at least anytime soon. I feel like I got what I needed out of it, And again, as I said, like just everything about the game, gameplay wise, I kind of got out of it. I did like the traversal that, as I said, going into the game, like it was going to be very dependent on like how I liked micromanaging cargo, how I liked the tools, and how I liked overall how to play. And yeah, it was very realistic. It was very much like a realistic hiking simulator. I enjoyed it. Definitely don't think it's the best game this year. Do I think it'll win Game of the Year tomorrow night? Because Game of the Year tomorrow night, I definitely think so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thanks.
It's interesting. It's going to be something that I'm still going to be thinking about for a few months ahead. But certainly it's not going to define this genre for me. It wasn't that big of a deal. But it was a new game. I could definitely say like it was something I never played before. I stuck it out. I played through 45 hours I think I am at now. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. For me, I like the sort of slow-paced, peaceful hiking simulator parts of it. Most of the story is good. I really like the concepts in it. The acting is really great. I like that Logor's in it. For things I don't like, I think it's way too long. I think the combat was just not fit for this game. I don't like how much exposition was in this game. And I do think there's some characters that are a lot weaker, and that content could have been trimmed out of the game to make it shorter. Overall, I would say I think the game and its overall execution is a failure for me. I don't think it works, but I'm glad that it exists and that I played it because it was interesting, even if I didn't think it was effective overall.
Yeah, I will say, like, without anything, like, it's always boring to have a game come out and, like, everyone have the same kind of, oh, it's such a great game, or, oh, it's such a trash game. It's nice to have these kind of games like Death Stranding and actually kind of, like, have some conversation, because I feel like a lot of times on the internet, it could just be a one-way kind of street with, like, everyone just kind of having the same kind of idea. So it was a really interesting release, and I'm glad that we kind of talked about this, like I say now, but I also say, like, just in general online for the past month, at least it's been now, so it's been interesting to see. Yeah, with that being said, I guess that has been our spoiler cast for Death Stranding. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm sure it's going to be hard to sum that up in like a text for sure, but go away, give it your best shot. We'll respond to you guys. At least I'll try to do some, the ones I see. And yeah, with that being said, I guess that has been our spoiler cast for Death Stranding. If you like these type of videos, make sure to let me know, at least with the like or at least with the comment. And
Smash
yeah,
like.
again, I said smash that like button, of course, as always. Yeah. Yeah, of course, link for Ian and Pyro's channel will be, I guess I say Pyro, Madman's and all his channel will be in the description. You know, that's one, okay, I'm going to talk about this another day. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to end it here. Links, of course, to both of those channels in the description below. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.